had a client this week, and she came with me worried about her team retention. And she told me she was afraid that people in her team would leave because she wasn't easygoing enough. She was not as her extroverted men leaders around her. She doesn't walk into the office and start chit-chatting with everyone. She doesn't ask about everyone's weekend when she gets into the office on Mondays. And we really wanted to tell her, I know how you feel exactly. Because that's me. I introverted by nature, and for many years, I thought something was wrong with me because I was not like other extroverted male leaders. And I tried to change that, but it wasn't really working because I couldn't change who I was. Only when I realized that being me was fine, and that's not a reason for anyone to not want to work with me or not see me as a leader, I realized that I had to accept who I am and love who I am. And this week, on the Wednesday episode, I talked with Naama Nicotra. Actually, this was the second episode that we recorded together. Naama is a brilliant founder. She started NakedPak, a company that creates food packaging that actually are hot water solvable. And we got into a conversation about walking into rooms where you don't know anyone. For me, that happens a lot, especially when I go to conferences. I speak at conferences worldwide, and in most of the cases, I walk into a conference not knowing anyone. Naama is similar to me. She's introverted, and she told me that it's uncomfortable to her as well. She doesn't walk into a room and work the room. She finds a drink, and she said it helps her relax. Me too. And she finds one person to talk to. And actually, she shared a funny story about how she met her husband. She said she saw a good-looking guy in a party that she attended. And that guy reminded her of someone she knew in the military. And she walked over that person and asked, "Are you Amir's brother?" And then they started talking, and eventually she married that person. So it was one drink, one person, one question. And I've been really thinking about that the whole week, because that's not the extrovert playbook. That's an introvert playbook. And for many years, I thought something was wrong with me. I won't forget the first big conference I went to. It was Java One. It was, I think, in 2001. Huge conference in San Francisco Moscone Center. I knew only the people that I came with from Israel. And I was really uncomfortable. Actually, that's an underestimate. I was terrified. And throughout the conference, and other conferences that followed in those years, I remember that I used to really feel that I need to stick around with someone I know. I always chose to walk to sessions when other people that came with me went to, and always was terrified to separate from the group, to go to something else that may be interested in more. And back then, I wasn't even realizing what I was doing. But looking back, I'm just thinking how uncomfortable it was for me as an introvert to go into such a big conference without knowing the people there, and how I felt that something is wrong with me. Why do I feel so uncomfortable? And this is what I wanted to share with you today. It took me some years to figure this out, those behaviors, this uncomfortable, even terrifying feeling. feeling of being drained after being at a business trip or at a conference and comparing myself to other extroverted men and judging myself harshly and feeling that something is wrong with me. Nothing was wrong with me. That's just who I am. And I realized that. And I also found something else. I may be terrible at working a room, but I'm actually pretty good at one person at a time. And when I go to conferences, I do talk with people. And I notice that I make good connections with few people. So it's not that I return from a conference with hundreds of people that I talk to. But those I did talk to, we had meaningful conversations. And interesting things happened. So in a conference I went to last year, one of those conversations that I had with one of the participants who actually watched my talk led me to a paid speaking engagement. Another conference I went to, I actually met people who lived in that city and met with them for coffee. So I do create meaningful conversations and stay in touch with people that I meet. It's just that I at my best when I'm either at a small group or speaking with one person at a time. And usually what I do when I go to a conference and I walk into a room, I try to find those people who are maybe like me, maybe feel a little bit awkward standing in the crowd and not knowing exactly how to start a conversation. And I just usually reach out and smile and say hi. And then I start being curious about them. Who are they? Where are they from? What brought them to that conference? What are they doing? And then the conversation just flows. It's easier to do it usually when there is a coffee break or during lunch. Actually, in the last conference I went to Zurich in DevOps days, I remember going to lunch and they had like long tables. And I just went and sat at a table in front of someone I didn't know. And I just smiled and started a conversation. We talked like about 30 minutes. And then we also exchange contact information and we stay in touch via LinkedIn. And it just comes naturally to me and easy. And I think that for those of you who feel uncomfortable with the word networking, with going to a big room, try to find one person to talk to. One meaningful conversation is all that you need. And that's perfectly fine. Nothing is wrong with you. And I want to kind of go back to Naama's story. So Naama in that party didn't reach a guy and said, "Hi, I'm Naama. I'm whatever, co-founder and CEO of NakedPak, or I'm doing this and that." She just asked a question. "Are you Amir's brother?" She was curious. And eventually that person became her husband. And when I approach someone at a conference, I don't lead with what I do. I lead a conversation with what I'm curious about them, about what they said in a panel, about the company on their badge. And usually I don't pitch at all. I just share what I do. I shared what led me to what I do, why I'm passionate about supporting women in tech, what I'm passionate about helping leaders. And actually something funny happened in the last conference I went to. We had a dinner, like some kind of dinner and drinks event at the night after the conference. And I spoke with two of the organizers. We had a great talk and it was fun. And I learned so much about them. It was a married couple. I learned how they met. And we just bonded and I felt really great. I felt like I really created a genuine connection. And it wasn't transactional. It wasn't about trying to sell anything or gain anything from that. Just having a fun, nice conversation and getting to know the people. And I think this is work the best when even if you're trying to sell something, even if you're trying to sell yourself or find investors, find I don't know, a job, whatever that may be. For me, like just being me and being curious about people and meeting them and speaking with them works the best because it feels really genuine and not like I'm trying to sell them something. And going back to the story I started with at the beginning with that client of mine, that she came to me worried about retention. I did ask her several questions. So I asked her what was the reason she thought people may leave. And as I said, she said, I'm not as easygoing as others. And I told her what people care about, the people that in her team. And she mentioned they care about doing interesting work, about having career progression path, and a nice environment to work with. And I asked her, does she think they have all that? And she said yes. And I told her, if all of that exists, they will not leave. Because people don't leave a company if their manager is not their best buddy. They leave a company if they feel unsupported, if they work in a toxic environment, if they don't believe in the company, or sometimes if they get a better offer. But they don't leave if their manager is not their best buddy. And if you are a quiet leader, and if you spent years thinking you're bad at networking, you're not. You're just comparing yourself to extroverted people, and you think you need to be like them. And here's what I want you to take this week. The next time you walk into a room you don't want to be in, or you don't feel comfortable being in, like a meeting, a conference, a team offsite, do one thing. Find one person. One person. Ask them a question. That's it. Have one meaningful conversation with one person. And then tell me who the person was and how was it. I want to hear about it. And I want to invite you to find me on LinkedIn and on Substack and send me your questions and share this episode with any introverts that dread conferences like me. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.